Hello, my name is Howard Barrett. I'm known throughout cyberspace by the moniker Servant to All. This here is my contribution to the Occupy Wall Street, Occupy all over the world movement. I have noticed many times that the movement has been criticized because they say that they have not delineated the particular things that they are trying to get done. As far as I can see, there are obviously a couple of things that they are concerned about. A, the fact that the politicians, or as I like to call them, politricians, do not represent the bulk of the country. This is a particular phenomenon that is a problem throughout the world, actually, and I think that's why they're actually trying to tie it to a global revolution. Obviously, the problem with trying to get our politricians to represent the bulk of the society has to do with the money in politics. The question is, how do we get the money out of politics? Well, I'll tell you something that I feel will actually make that happen, and you can actually see if indeed you agree. It's okay. But before I get to that, one of the things that you must actually understand is just how insidious this whole situation is. When what was his name, Colin Powell was Secretary of State, he had a son by the name of Michael Powell who ended up as head of the SEC. While Michael Powell was head of the SEC, what he did was, he gutted the programs that were designed to make sure that minorities actually had an opportunity to own media outlets. This particular program actually lent them money, helped them with finances, etc., so that they could get started. It takes a great deal of money to start a television or radio station. Well, he gutted those programs, and not only did he do that, but he relaxed the regulations on corporations as far as how many media outlets they could own within one particular city or within a certain mile radius, etc., etc. As a result, what we have now is corporate owned media. Now, the insidious part about that is that the money that is needed to actually run for political office, especially on the federal level, is immense. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars that people need to have in their coffers. When these corporations now buy influence through their contributions to these particular politricians, what actually happens is, because they own the media outlets, they get most of the money back. Now, that is very, very insidious when you really think about it. I mean, the reason why it takes so much to run for political office is that it takes so much money to actually spend on political advertisement. So by them owning the TV and radio stations that these politricians will actually have to end up paying their money to for their political advertisement, I mean, it's just a circular thing. So it's not just about politicians running in and out of the door between private sector, public sector, etc., etc. The money goes back and forth in a circular motion. This is why they don't represent us. Now, the problem with actually getting them to represent us is that we need to have constitutional amendments, and actually, in order to actually stop the buying of our politicians. In order to take the money out of politics, there needs to be a constitutional amendment. Now, the problem with that is that we, the people, cannot even propose a constitutional amendment. According to our Constitution, the only people who can actually propose a constitutional amendment are Congress and state legislatures. Now, what we need to do, first and foremost, is to get the power back in the hands of the people. We do that by making sure that we have a litmus test, and this has to be a litmus test for all politicians, whether it's on a national level, whether it's on a state level, because either they're willing to give power to the people, or they want to continue to patriarchally have it all themselves. Now, if any politician is in favor of, say, allowing the people to propose constitutional amendments, and this can be done in any manner of ways, like, for instance, you take the number of people who voted in the last election, for instance, say it's 100,000 in any given state. Well, then, because I want to use good numbers, easy numbers to deal with, 5% of that will be 5,000 people. That means that if you propose a particular constitutional amendment and 5,000 people sign on and say, hey, we really want to deal with this, that means it goes on the ballot and now people actually vote for it. Without that, there is no way to actually make the changes that we need to have. You have to understand that at the founding of our nation, the founding fathers wanted to make sure that power was concentrated in the hands of a few, and they made the rules in such a way to ensure that. Now, if we want to have power in the hands of the people, we must be able to propose constitutional amendments, because, again, in order to take the money out of politics, it's going to take a constitutional amendment, and the POLI-TRICKS who are in office right now will not vote for it. Now, we also need to have, yes, we need to have congressional term limits as well. But again, that's not something that will ever happen unless we, the people, can actually propose the constitutional amendment to make it happen. So, first and foremost, this must be the litmus test. Every politician, I don't care how much you like him, how much you love him, this and that, just think of what they do to us in terms of how the media portrays politicians. Well, they voted for this agenda and this and that because they voted for me. Hell no, we don't vote for any particular agenda. We vote for you because we think that you will do what we want. Think about healthcare, for instance. An overwhelming majority of the American public wanted to have a public option, and that was even a compromise to what they really wanted, which was a single-payer system. However, the fact is, regardless of what we wanted, the politicians, the POLI-TRICKS, did not vote on it. They say that we voted for their particular agenda. We don't care. They call themselves public servants. I don't know what you understand about the concept of a public servant, but to me, a public servant means you serve the public. And if indeed you are a servant, it means that you do not have the ability to do other than what the people that you serve want you to do. Take, like, for instance, a corporation. Corporation, when people can't vote on such and such, they have proxies to go and vote for them, right? Now, that proxy cannot of his own decide that he wants to go ahead and vote yay or nay. He has to vote exactly the way you want him to vote. It's illegal for him to do otherwise. Now, they have all these rules in place to protect the corporations. They don't have these rules in place to protect you, because you don't matter, and you must understand that. So, if we had true public servants, then they could not vote for something other than what the people wanted. We would not have all of this BS going around over and over talking about how, well, the American people want this, and yeah, but they don't know this and that, and so we're going to have to try to make them see this, that, and the other, and it's all bullshit. Okay? It's all bullshit. Because if a servant serves you, okay, you hire a servant. You can fire a servant or beat a servant or whatever, depending upon your definition of a servant is, but regardless, in no way does that servant get to go on his own and say, Master, I don't want to do such and such because that's not good for us. The servant must do what the master, what the employer says he must do. So we don't have public servants, but we can have them. We can have them through constitutional amendments. Now, the other thing, for instance, another example, the governor of Wisconsin, I forget his name, is not that important to me. But when they were going through this whole little deal of making sure that People could no longer do the collective bargaining thing. They want to take all that out of the state of Wisconsin, so that they could basically dictate how much they would be paid on any given job. The real atrocity there is that in order to even recall him, he had to be in office for a year. Now, if someone is a servant, you don't need to have that particular stipulation in there that says that this person must be in office for a year before you can recall him. If someone is a servant, the moment they decide to do other than what the people they serve want, the people can get them out. It's that simple. So we, the people, have, and not only that, think about when George W. Bush was president and he had an approval rating of like 20% or something at one particular point. 70% of the people didn't want him in office, disapproved of how he was handling things. Well, we need to be able to get somebody out as opposed to having to wait. All this little BS about, well, the country will be in shambles if we can actually get rid of somebody that quickly. That's all bullshit, because the Constitution has everything in place. If indeed something happens to the president, the vice president steps in. If something happens to him, I forget whether it's either the speaker or the Secretary of State that steps in, one or the other. But all of these mechanisms are in place. So all of the rest that they're trying to tell us is absolute bullshit. Okay? So now we get to the point of actually getting the money out of politics. What most POLI-TRICKS will try to tell you is that, well, we just want to have national elections wherein the federal government pays for them, and so therefore we take the money out, the contributions, etc., etc. That's all bullshit. That's like putting the fox in control of the hen house. Okay? What we need to do, and this will absolutely take the money out of politics on the local level, on the federal level, on every level. All we have to do, consider the fact that right now in our country, TV stations, radio stations regularly run what are called public service announcements. You have to excuse me. I've had a couple of drinks, but what the hell? Don't worry about that. It's all good. It's 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I've had a couple. Now, when we get to the point where something is of service to the public, then the public can demand that on particular things you don't make money on them. In other words, all we have to do is say, well, you own this media outlet and you make money doing this and that, but you make money selling commercials to other corporations. You make money selling commercials for Super Bowls and so on and so forth. You can make money in so many ways, but you just cannot make money on political advertisement. Political advertisement becomes free. Now, do you think that's something that the politicians will actually vote yes for? Hell no. They make a lot of money this way. But we, the people, can. So that is why it is absolutely imperative that the litmus test be for every politician. Every politician. I don't give a damn how much you like that politician. You ask that politician, is he willing to give power to the people, or does he want to continue to concentrate power in the hands of a few? I think there was Supreme Court Justice, I forget his name, I think it was Louis Brandeis. He says something about you can have a democracy, or no, you can have capitalism. No, he said you can have democracy, or you can have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but you can't have both. Either you have a democracy or you have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few. I think he was a Supreme Court justice somewhere back in the 40s or whatever. I just ran across that particular quote recently. But this is what we all have to work for. And I'm talking about on a state level. I'm talking about on a federal level. Everyone who's running for state office, you have to say, look, are you willing to change the constitution of our particular state that says that the people have the authority to propose constitutional amendments. Because until we get there, no change is even possible. Now, there are a lot of groups out there like MoveOn.org and and so on and so forth who call themselves supporters of the people and so on and so forth that can actually draft actual wording of a particular amendment that would actually transfer power to the people. Okay, but this is the problem worldwide, because worldwide it's not just a matter of wealth being concentrated in the hands of a few here in America. This is a global phenomenon. And it is unfortunately one of the offshoots of capitalism. I'll get into that at another time. We really don't want to get into that argument. But I just want you to understand that if we want to actually transfer power from those who have power right now back to the people, we cannot do that without taking money out of politics. And not only can we not do that without taking money out of politics, we cannot take the money out of politics unless we, the people, have the power to propose constitutional amendments. Because if we can't do it, it won't get done. Because they are not going to do it. Understand that, okay? Now, for all of you who only just tuned in to figure out exactly what my proposal was in terms of that, that's fine. You may go. This is about something else now. I've noticed a couple of things relative to the 99% and how people are trying to divide and conquer. There was one particular video that I remember checking out relative to Congressman John Lewis not being able to speak here in Atlanta. And, I talked to a guy who was actually a facilitator in the General Assembly there, and I know exactly what went on. And so they were really just trying to say he needed to wait, but he was busy and he couldn't wait, and so on and so forth. And that's just the way it happened. I think that was a mistake, but at the same time, I understand the procedure that they were trying to go about doing some things. Now, there have also been a couple of other little racial issues that supposedly happened in Philadelphia. Supposedly a couple of the people from Occupy there in Philadelphia called a couple of people some niggas in a shop or whatever. Listen, and I think they were trying to beat on some drums. They were separating themselves so they could actually determine whether or not they as black people actually want to participate in the movement. This is the issue that everyone has to understand, and this is the main reason why I have put a video up on my YouTube channel that took about 14 minutes excerpt from what was the name of the series, Africans in America, America's Journey Through Slavery. I think that was, it was a 6-hour PBS series. It was narrated by Angela Bassett. I love that girl. Anyway, this particular 14-minute segment dealt with indentured servants here in America. It's very important that people understand, first and foremost, that the first black people that came to this country did not come to this country as slaves. We came to this country as indentured servants, just like a lot of white folk. However, the aristocracy that actually controlled these indentured servants recognized that, number one, they were outnumbered. Two, the blacks and the whites, who were both indentured servants, they got along very well. They intermingled, they intermarried, and everything was kosher with them. But because they were outnumbered, and the fact is that upon them obtaining their freedom from their debenture, their indenture, I think it was whatever. I think it was debenture, was the note, whatever. In any event, when they received freedom from their indenture, they were supposed to be given a plot of land and a gun, because they're here in a land where people are intent on driving them to the sea. I mean, after all, we invaded other people's land. It is what it is. Now, they recognized that they were outnumbered, and if they gave these people guns, who knows, they may align themselves with the natives. They may do this, they may do that. So they were very much afraid, so therefore they had to increase their numbers. They then decided that they would no longer have indentured servants who were white, only black. Over a period of time that changed from a period of years to a lifetime, etc. And then those people who were ignorant white folk decided that they would turn against their black brethren, their former black brethren. Now, understand that divide and conquer has always been the way of America. It has always been the way of the world. Okay? But the only true issue here, the only true issue around the world is and always has been class. They have us sitting back talking all kind of trash about different races, different sexual orientations, different religions or lack thereof, etc., as if that is somehow a dividing issue. It's not a dividing issue for those in power. I've got that book here somewhere, Game Change. It's over there on the floor. As a matter of fact, if I get up to get it, my microphone will probably go, so I'm not going to get it. But if you understand what really happened in Barack Obama's ascension to the presidency of the United States of America, then you understand that Barack Obama was recruited by the Democratic Party to run because they felt that Hillary Clinton, even though she would probably win the Democratic nomination, would lose the presidency, and they wanted the presidency. Now, that means that racial prejudice didn't mean shit to them. Okay? They were concerned about winning, and they recruited Barack Obama. And as he decided that this was a good thing for him, he took on the agenda of those who decided that they were going to support him. Some of them openly, some of them clandestinely. Look, I understand a lot of you all are Barack Obama fans. I was myself at one particular time. I'm not going to get into that, but I want you to understand that right now in the Democratic Party, they have black folk, Hispanic folk, well, let's just say in Congress in general. They have a Muslim serving. I believe Barney Frank, openly gay person, serving. They don't give a damn. Mitt Romney, who is running for president right now, a Mormon. I'll get on that on another particular video. But they don't give a damn about none of the stuff that divides us. See, divide and conquer has always been the issue. Now, relative to that situation that was going on in Philadelphia, one thing that has to happen, you who are in the majority, and I know in every city it's not going to be whites in the majority. In some cities it's going to be blacks, in some cities it's going to be Hispanic or whatever. But you who are in the majority in any given city, when you see people trying to divide, it is your duty to stop it. Okay? Because you have to understand, all of us have to understand, this is a countrywide, worldwide phenomenon wherein the small percentage of people not only have the largest concentration of wealth, but they have the largest concentration of power. They have more representation in government, and they make government do what the fuck they want done. But we are the 99%. I love this movement. I support this movement. There are some things that I can't necessarily do as far as getting down there to support them physically, so I do what I can, and that's why I'm doing this now. But we have to understand, all of the stuff that divides us does not divide them. They control the dissemination of information, which is one of the main reasons why you have to utilize the internet. You have to do some things. You have to get your information from more places other than the state-owned media in this country. Okay? Understand that. One thing I'm going to leave you with, there was a quote that people are always out there saying over and over again: the people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. That is so damn true. But the people divided will always be deleted. The people divided will always be deleted. The people divided will always be deleted. Remember that.